What's up everyone and welcome back to the World History Channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. Why Queen Elizabeth I was the most hardcore ruler England has ever seen. In addition to being one of the most important rulers in English history, Queen Elizabeth I was an amazing queen who defied expectations. Even within the storied English monarchy, Elizabeth stands out. She proved to the early modern world that women could be exceptional rulers. The England that Elizabeth inherited in 1558 was a troubled one. Her father, Henry VIII, had done what no other monarch had done before him. He expanded the monarchy by breaking with the Catholic Church and making England a Protestant country. Conflicts between Catholics and Protestants resulted from this religious rift with Europe, which had profound effects. Torn apart by instability, England badly needed a strong ruler to steer the direction of its future. Elizabeth took the throne after her father's death and a number of short-lived heirs. Elizabeth, a young woman who was never supposed to be queen, was up to the task. She contributed to bringing peace, stability, confidence, and wealth to her people during her 44 years on the throne. She charted a middle way in politics and religion, and ensured that England remained independent in the face of turmoil on the European continent. Under Elizabeth's leadership, England's maritime destiny was laid out and explorers dipped their toes into the so-called New World. Elizabeth is still a notable member of the British royal family, and deserves to be remembered as one of history's greatest figures. She was the ultimate single lady. The disastrous marriage policies of her father and older half-sister, Queen Mary I, taught Elizabeth I that getting married was a tricky and risky situation. Her father had 6 wives over the course of his royal career, and Mary's marriage to a Spanish king inspired the passionate outrage of her English subjects. Furthermore, Elizabeth's situation was delicate. As a woman, she risked losing her independence, since she already had plenty of people who doubted her capacity to rule. Marrying a foreign prince was a dance in foreign policy. Marrying a subject was a dance in domestic policy. Despite the fact that Elizabeth spent a significant amount of time worrying about potential suitors and the pressure to produce heirs, she was eventually made a virgin queen, and was famously quoted as saying, "I will have here but one mistress, and no master." Even though many believed it was against the laws of nature for a woman to rule, Elizabeth proved them all wrong. By not marrying, she was able to preserve English autonomy and minimize factionalism amongst the English nobility. She defied the odds to inherit the throne. The throne was never really Elizabeth's to inherit. She was her father's second daughter, officially at least. Though she was born legitimate in 1533, her standing in the royal family quickly changed when her mother, Anne Boleyn, fell from grace and was beheaded in 1536. In the fallout of Henry's disposal of his executed wife, Elizabeth herself was declared illegitimate and thus unlikely to ever succeed the throne. When Jane Seymour's much-anticipated son was born in 1537, the Queen's rise to power was further pushed to the margins. Henry VIII kept changing the line of succession, pushing his red-haired daughter further and further down the line. But when her younger brother passed in 1553 at the age of 15 and the crown went to her sister Mary, Elizabeth moved up the food chain. Elizabeth was viewed as a threat and briefly imprisoned in the Tower of London during the years of turmoil brought on by Mary's vicious anti-Protestant campaigns. Mary's marriage to Philip of Spain produced no children. When Mary passed from illness in 1558, Elizabeth finally became queen. She succeeded because she was the last heiress of Henry VIII standing. It appears that patience was a virtue. She put people on *T list. And God help you if you were on it. Hell has no fury like a raged queen, and Elizabeth was very, very good at it. As queen, she expected that her courtiers show her respect. But her well-known vanity often made it difficult for would-be spouses to wed under Elizabeth's watchful eye. Bess Throckmorton and Catherine Grey, 2 of her ladies-in-waiting, earned the ire of the Queen by secretly marrying their lovers without the Queen's knowledge or permission. In fact, when Mary Shelton, the Queen's second cousin, secretly married John Scudamore without the Queen's permission, she is said to have suffered a broken finger when Elizabeth smacked her hand with her hairbrush. Men were just as likely to get on the royal *T list as women. Explorer Sir Walter Raleigh fell in and out of favor. Robert Devereux, 2nd Earl of Essex, a dashing and determined courtier, tested her patience by repeatedly and treasonously disobeying her orders. In the end, he lost his head. She actually encouraged forms of piracy. The England that Elizabeth ruled was a golden age of the arts, exploration, and piracy. England's chief naval rival was Spain, and English privateers took buckets of goods and money from Spanish ships traveling to and from the Americas. Spain complained bitterly that so-called English privateers ransacked their ships, but Elizabeth did nothing to curb the exploits of men like Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Francis Drake. In fact, she rewarded such achievements. She was brainy and sporty. Elizabeth was the daughter of her father, and she proved to be a queen who enjoyed both work and schooling equally. Her father, if his initial obsession with her mother was any indication, appreciated a woman with a sharp mind, and he saw to it that Elizabeth received a top-notch education. She was taught history, philosophy, and rhetoric, and was fluent in no less than 6 languages besides her native English: Latin, French, Greek, Spanish, Italian, and Welsh. At the same time, she was unapologetically active. She was an avid hunter and horsewoman. While on the hunt, she would be invited to slit the throats of animals that had been felled. Her court was also famous for dancing the night away. She kept an astrologer because why not? One of Elizabeth's most trusted advisors was actually someone who believed in alchemy and astrology. John Dee, or Dr. Dee, as he was called, was one of the most respected men of science in the Elizabethan world. He was a mathematician, a scientist, an alchemist, and an astrologer whose counsel Elizabeth routinely sought. In fact, Dee encouraged Elizabeth's imperial politics and was steadfast in his belief that the future of England was in the New World of North America. Dee's interest in the occult brought interesting characters into his life. For years, he worked with another man, Edward Kelly, on occult experiments. The two of them developed a language for communicating with angels called Enochian and attempted to invoke spirits in crystal objects. Prospero in William Shakespeare's The Tempest probably got his start in real life from Dee. She was a cougar before it was cool. Even though Elizabeth was known as the Virgin Queen, that didn't mean she couldn't have a bit of fun. Indeed, throughout her reign, Elizabeth entertained a list of royal favorites. Most notable was Robert Dudley, 1st Earl of Leicester, who was a companion and advisor to the Queen for several decades. Some academics even hold the opinion that Dudley was her true love. Additionally, it is said that she valued male beauty. She also had affairs with Sir Walter Raleigh, Thomas Heneage, and the Duke of Anjou, a potential husband. As she aged, she made no effort to mute her flirtations. Towards the end of her reign, the young Robert Devereux, stepson to her former favorite, Robert Dudley, rose quickly in her favor, despite the fact that he was 33 years younger than the Queen. He flirted his way into royal appointments, and their relationship sent tongues wagging at court. He was as vain as he was handsome, however, and his star fell as quickly as it rose. After several instances of disloyal conduct, he attempted to revolt against the Queen and her government, a foolish move that cost him his head. She gave one of the best speeches in British history. In 1588, Elizabeth's kingdom was threatened by a large armada of ships from Spain that threatened to pull off the only successful invasion of England since the Norman conquest in 1066. In response, Elizabeth called on her best sailors to hold them off and rallied soldiers across the land. She gave a speech to her troops at Tilbury, anticipating the arrival of the Spanish ships. In her rallying cry to her troops, Elizabeth described herself as having the heart and stomach of a king. The speech is still regarded as one of the most significant in British history. She survived being locked up in the Tower of London. In 1553, Elizabeth's older half-sister, Mary, succeeded their younger half-brother, Edward, to the throne. Mary was a devout Catholic in an England badly divided between Protestantism and Catholicism. For English Protestants, the new Catholic Queen was a threat to their religion. Though Mary was initially supportive and cordial to her younger sister, that changed in the wake of Wyatt's rebellion when Mary suspected that Elizabeth was plotting to usurp the throne. In the spring of 1554, Mary confined her sister for 2 months in the Tower of London. In prison, Elizabeth maintained her innocence. Fortunately, Mary refused to condemn her sister to death. She gave her nation a literary golden age and supported the arts. The Elizabethan era is known as a golden age in English history, a time when the literary arts flourished. All of this thanks to the fact that England was relatively peaceful throughout Elizabeth's reign. Due to peace throughout the land, William Shakespeare could write his plays and Edmund Spenser could write his poetry. Elizabeth also cultivated a literary court, and many of her courtiers were themselves poets, including Sir Philip Sidney and Thomas Sackville. She encouraged the exploration of the New World. Elizabeth I encouraged English exploration of the so-called New World. She sent Sir Walter Raleigh on multiple expeditions to the Americas, just like the Spanish did, to plunder for riches. Though Raleigh returned without gold, he brought back resources: potatoes, tobacco, and the idea of England invading and colonizing the Americas. Raleigh named land in North America Virginia, in her honor, and even set up an unsuccessful English colony on Roanoke Island. She had a spymaster. Since Elizabeth ascended to the throne in the most unlikely of circumstances, it was natural that she felt insecure in her power at times. Intelligence was thus important to her security, so she kept a spymaster, Sir Francis Walsingham. Walsingham was a fervent Protestant. He placed spies and used a lot of his intelligence to limit the influence of Catholic Spain. He even worked with his agents to code and decode letters. She survived an assassination plot. The Babington Plot in 1586 was an attempt to assassinate Elizabeth I and replace her with her Catholic cousin, Mary, the exiled Queen of Scotland. The plot, hatched by Anthony Babington, was as brazen as it was treasonous. Elizabeth's spymaster Francis Walsingham uncovered the plot and prevented it from happening. In the aftermath, Babington and his co-conspirators were executed, as was Mary, Queen of Scots.